And we're live. Hi everyone, I'm Anna Livermore from V.Mora, and today we are talking about branding. So in case you didn't hear, I'm doing a special promotion for coaching. It's 40% off. So I'm doing these live events so you guys get a little taste of what it's like to work together and things we would talk about and things I'd help you align and systems I'd help you set up in the coaching. If you're interested in that, there's a link in my bio where you can book a strategy session with myself. So today we're talking about branding, and it's something that's overlooked a lot of times with designers because you have your brand in your head, right? Like, you know your color palette, you know who your customer is, you can see the girl on the street wearing your dress. But branding is really, really important because although it's in your head, you have to have a way that you can explain that to your photographer, to who's doing your social media, to who's building your website. All of these people need to know what's in your head, and the way to do that is to create a branding deck. But before you do this branding deck, I have you do a little exercise, and I'm going to run you through that today, of questions that you need to ask yourself about your brand before you go any further. So the first question, these are the brand identity questions. You want to ask yourself, what inspired you? Because obviously you know what inspired you, but when you're working with anybody else, your designers, anyone at all, they're not going to know unless you've put it on paper. So being able to explain what inspired you will help identify who you are as a brand. The next one is who inspired you. That can be your grandma, that can be your favorite designer, that can be your best friend. Where did you get this inspiration to start this company? It tells us a little bit about your story. What inspired your name? A lot of my designers don't even have their name by the time that we start working together, so that's okay, but you can say what you want your name to feel like, what you want it to portray when someone reads it. Do you want it simple? Do you want it a longer name? Just, describe what your name should convey. Unless you have your name, how'd you get it? Where did it come from? What inspired your name? The next one is, who do you see wearing your brand? For whom did you create your pieces? So this is getting a little into who is your customer. So who's gonna buy your garments? Who's gonna wear your garments? Where are they gonna wear it? Be as detailed as possible. I do a little side exercise with my designers that might be having a hard time about who their customer is. I tell them to do a journal entry as your customer. What do they do when they wake up? What are their fun activities? Like, really do what you can to be your customer. And a lot of my designers are their own customers, so that's a really easy exercise. But you want to have a good idea of who you're launching for, because before you start designing and picking fabrics, you'll want to have a price point in mind. And each customer has a different price point that they're okay with spending on certain items. So that's why your customer profile and knowing who your customer is so important. But for right now, just write, who do you see wearing your brand? You can get more detailed later in your branding deck. But for the beginning stages, just check and see who's gonna wear it. Obviously someone's gonna wear this design, and you want to describe that as best as you can. Number 5 is, what do you hope to fill a void in the industry? Do you hope to fill a void in the industry? If so, tell me why. Most of my clients will come to me with, I have a I want to start a children's wear line because every time I buy children's wear, it fits and it's too baggy, and I want to do something more buttoned up and more that fits a little bit more structured than what's on the market. Or I want to do something that is made for women that don't want to wear bras. One of my clients, Sugar Shirts, has designed an entire shirt around sweatshirts and dresses and button-ups that you don't have to wear a bra for. So that's their marketing message. So usually there should be something special about your brand, something that sets you apart, some void that you're trying to fill in the fashion industry, and you'll want to write this down here. And for those of you just joining, don't worry, I'm gonna go back to the top review all the questions, and this will be on my IGTV and my Instagram page, so you can look at it later too. Take notes. And number 6, what conversations do you wish to start with your brand or your message, and amongst whom? So who will be talking about your brand? What conversations, how would you describe your brand? How would it come up in conversations? Why are people going to talk about what you're doing? And what does that look like? Number 7 is, how do you see yourself reflected in the garments? How would you like to see yourself reflected in the brand? So whether it's your favorite color, or whether it's a certain aesthetic of how you like to dress, or you're looking to update your wardrobe for work. Whatever that is, you'll want to talk about how you are reflected in the brand. Now more than ever, people are buying people. They want to know who the designer is, they want to know who you are, and they want to see how you're reflected in your brand. And if you're doing menswear and you're a woman, there's still ways that you can reflect your personality and who you are into your brand. So you'll want to think about that. Number 8, did you envision yourself, do an envision for this, did you envision this for yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were younger? When did you start thinking about being a designer? Was it something you always wanted to do, but maybe you went to law school and then became a lawyer, and 10 years in, you're like, you know what, I want to start a clothing line. I should have done it so long ago. Is it something you just woke up today and decided, I want to be a fashion designer? So that tells us your story, which will later build out into your About Us on your website. So just tell us how you came up with the idea, how long you've wanted to be a designer, a little bit about yourself and your dream, and how it came about. The next one is number 9. When and how did you enter the space of design? When did you start to see yourself as a designer? Did you study design? Was it natural? So this is a little bit more pinpointed from the last question, but is it something you were born with when you were a little girl? Like for me, when I was a little girl, I made my whole class poodle skirts out of paper and friendship bracelets. That was actually my first business, was those like 1980s friendship bracelets. And I taught all the girls in the neighborhood how to make them, and then we sold them back before you couldn't really go door to door selling. But we sold door to door, and it's always been in me to do fashion design. I knew that I wanted to be in the fashion industry. So tell us your story on that. Number 10 is, what 3 words would you use to sum up your identity? And now there's actually a longer exercise that I use for this, where it gives you words to pick from. We're not going to get into that today, but if you were working with me for brand identity, I would run you through that questionnaire, and it just helps you. On the sheet is a lot of words you might not necessarily think of, but it gives you opposites. Are you sophisticated or are you casual? And between all the words, you can pick which one more identifies you, and then from that you'll be able to choose the 3 words instead of using words. Some words are pretty overused: contemporary, custom, high fashion. You want to stay away from any words that are overused a lot and be a little bit more creative in what 3 words describe you. The next question, number 11, is this brand connected to how you see yourself? How do you want people in the world to see you? How do you want the world to see people that are similar to you? So go into detail about that. And again, a lot of these questions have similar answers. We're just trying to ask you similar questions to see if we can't dig a little deeper into the answers of who you are, why are you doing this, what's your brand story. And number 12 is, picture a room of 5 to 10 women or children or men, whoever that is, for your brand. Who are these people? What are they eating? What are they talking about? What's most important to them? Describe them as best as you can and as specifically as you can, because again, this is helping build that customer profile that you'll have to do later in a lot more detail. So those are the quick 12 questions that I have for your brand identity. I'm also going to run you through quickly what a branding deck should include, so you'll be able to figure out a lot of it on your own, or you can hire someone. We do brand identity for clients all the time, but it's something that comes from you, so you should at least think about it before you hire it out. But I'll run through the questions quickly. What inspired you to start your brand? Number 2, who are you inspired by? Number 3, what inspired the name? Number 4, who do you see wearing your brand? For whom did you create your pieces? Number 5, how do you fill a void in the fashion industry? Number 6, what conversation do you wish to start with your brand messaging and amongst who? Number 7, how do you see yourself reflected in the garments? How would you like to see yourself reflected in the garments? Number 8, did you envision yourself 5 years ago, 10 years ago when you were younger doing this collection? Number 9, how and when did you enter the design space? When did you start as a designer? Did you study? Do you have work experience? Was it just a born talent? Number 10, what 3 words would you use to sum up your identity? Number 11, is this brand connected to how you see yourself? How do you want the world to see you? How do you want the world to see people that are similar to you? Number 12 is picture a room of 5 to 10 women wearing your clothing. Are these, or children, men, whatever your brand is for, what are they eating? What are they talking about? Describe them as best as you can. And if anyone's interested in me actually sending this PDF, you can send me a DM on Instagram. Also, if you would like to talk, I do a 20-minute free strategy session, so we can talk one-on-one. The link for that is in my bio. All right, so now I'm going to bring you into another really important part, is the branding deck. And this is, I do mine in a PowerPoint, but it's got to be some sort of deck that you can bring people through. You want to have your logo, your brand identity. So your brand identity officially includes your name, your logo, your color palette, with Pantones attached so that anyone can get that exact pink color off of your Pantone number. What typefaces you want to use, what's your tagline, what is your voice and tone, what does your hang tag look like, are you going to have packaging? So that's the basic brand identity. Then brand applications you'll want to think about would be your website, your business cards, your labels, any printed material, your hang tag, your newsletters, the banners, email signatures, letterheads, all of that comes into your brand applications. You'll want to identify that target market, and we talked about that a little bit, but what are they interested in? What influencers do they follow? Are you going to align with any other brands? What is your customers' shopping habits? Who are your competitors? How old are your customers? What are their browsing habits? Where do they live? What's their income? What's the lifestyle? And with this, I always see the most successful designers are their customer is very small. I've worked with Erica. She has a drindle making company in Chicago, and she just makes German drindles. That's it. Am I not saying that word right? Oh, my business partner's over there giving me weird looks. Drindle, right?
I don't know what it is.
It's like that German corset they wear with the dresses. So like she does all the German fests in Chicago. She's been to Germany for the German fest. Her pieces are beautiful. If you ever want a drindle, you go to her. Now her customer base is very, very small, but she's been very successful because that customer knows to go to her and they go back to her for exactly what they know what they want. When you try to have a customer, everyone's my customer. What happens is you water out your brand, you water out your designs. It's impossible to please everyone, and knowing that sooner rather than later is it's important because you don't want to get caught up in the feedback of everyone on the planet. Your line isn't going to be for everyone on the planet. There are going to be people that don't like what you're doing, and that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means you know who your customer is, and that's not your customer. So being able to identify who that is early on is really important. You'll want to think about create a mood board. This will be images of your customer, the boutique that maybe you're going to sell at, anything that's going to give a visual of what you have in your head. For photographers, for social media, you'll want to think about your voice and tone. So are you going to have a more casual voice? Are you going to have a, there's a million different ways you can come across. Is it going to be like quirky and fun? One of my favorite brands, because they do it so well, is Poopery. Like, they are on brand, on point with everything they do. And then they came out with Men's Sense. Same thing, same voice. I knew it was the same brand, even though it's not the same product I'm used to. So being able to identify what your voice is going to be is really important. You'll want to write your brand intro, your website copy, your social media captions, your FAQs, your newsletters, product descriptions, press releases, and event invitations. So all of this has to sound like it comes from the same person. And some additional things you'll want to think about in branding, although I've given you a lot to think about already. Knowing your target market is really, really important. Are you going to work with influencers? Who might these influencers be? Are you going to do Instagram, Facebook? What platforms are you going to use? Are you going to do any swag? Are you going to have a lower ticket item for people to purchase? What are you going to roll out with next? If you're working with investors, they'll want to see this is my first collection, and then this is my second drop, and it's based off of this, but it'll be more fine-tuned. Or, what direction are you going to take your brand? Are you going to do sales? When are those sales going to be? And then there's always the SEOs and the Google ads and all of that. So it's a ton of information, but it's super valuable. Branding, you've got to do it. You've got to get it out of your head onto a paper, just so whenever you talk to anyone, they can get a visual and have writing about who you are as a designer. So if you want to book time with me to talk, like I said, the link for my calendar to book a strategy session is in my profile. And we've got a few people on the call. Does anyone have any questions? Let's see. I have lots of waves. I don't know who's still on. No questions? Cool. So I'm going to put this on the IGTV. I'll put it on my news feed. Next week at 2 o'clock, I'm talking about something else. I don't remember, but it's going to be valuable. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.